The most extraordinary finish to a game this season, a feel-good story at the Dockers, and we delve into how the Cats beat the Power. All that and more to come from the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. But Kane Corns, we have to start tonight in Cairns. What a finish. Riley Thilthorpe getting the match winner in just his 8th AFL game.
Unbelievable game of football, wasn't it? We'll get to that in a moment, but this young man's going to be a star. He could be the best prospect out of that 2020 draft. Pick 2 has just looked every bit a player. He's going to grow into his body, and he's going to be an absolute force at 200 centimetres for a long, long time. And to have the smarts to do that under pressure in that moment, I wouldn't have attempted it. Can't believe he did, but he pulled it off. And having a very fine first season is Riley Thilthorpe.
He's 200 centimetres kicking goals over his head to win games of AFL footy. Extraordinary. How about this now, Kane? Their 5th win of the season. They moved past the Saints on the table, 36-0 at the start of the game, and they were also 36 points down early in the third before Rory Sloane got the ball rolling in the last quarter.
Had a massive captain's last quarter, did Rory Sloane. He was quiet up until three-quarter time. 7 disposals, that big goal in the last quarter, and a big smother. He was enormous. Here we go again. Jack Giggins, same old story from last week. That kicking style for goal is just so questionable. I'm not sure who's advising him down at St Kilda. It continues to be an issue. He's kicked 1 goal, 8 the last 2 weeks. This free kick wasn't there, and the explanation from the umpire was just as bad. He said Dougal Howard prevented him from marking the football. Well, that's a defender's job, so play on in that moment. No free kick there. Crow's the beneficiary of that one from the top of the goal square, which he kicked. Another free kick here against Dougal Howard, who was so poor. He looked out on his feet in the last quarter, along with a lot of his teammates, the St Kilda players. Not sure about their fitness program, their fitness regime, but they were absolutely spent. We'll get to that in a moment. And we've seen this one before. This was the match winner. Crows just kept coming. And credit to them for the character of this young group, youngest team in the competition, to hang in there like they did. And to be fair, like they've done for most of the year. But 36-0. They didn't score for the first 40 minutes of this game. Could have been demoralising, but they were good enough to hang in there and pull off the most unlikely victory.
And we saw that set shot before. Thilthorpe missed, didn't even score. It was still 1 point in the margin. Then he kicks the match winner and actually sees the ball and shepherds it over the line himself. A crazy, crazy finish. Here are the stats from that last quarter. Kane, talk us through them, because this is damning for St Kilda. Yes, they've got injuries, and yes, they lost a key player early, but this is not good for a club that won a final last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So plus 15 inside 50s in the last quarter, plus 21 in contested footy. That just has to be St Kilda's strength. They don't really have any flair on the outside of that midfield, with Hanbury not there and Hill playing across half back. So they must, with the players they've got, and Steele and Dunstan and Crouch in there, you've got to compete against the 4th worst side in the competition to this point, Adelaide. When you have a lead like that and you cough up minus 21 in contested footy, there's something seriously wrong at St Kilda. It's been a woeful year, and understand they had a whole heap of players out and they're struggling to field a team. But you do not cough up games like that from that position against one of the youngest teams and one of the poorer teams in the competition. So inexcusable for Brett Ratton. I'm not sure where they go to. It's going to be a long last 8 or 9 weeks for them. But just an absolutely horrible year, and that was on display again tonight.
And only North Melbourne has conceded more points in last quarters this year now than St Kilda. We've looked this week about Carlton undergoing a mid-season review. Just quickly, should the Saints look at something similar, given this is a team that won a final last year and is now 5-8?
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll be an external review, but internally, absolutely they'll be reviewing all of that. They need to question their recruiting. I mean, did they go too aggressive? Did they overestimate where they were? They need to question their fitness department. They were out on their feet from halfway through that last quarter, and that just shouldn't happen against a young side who haven't had the pre-season that St Kilda have had. Their injury list as well, what is going on there? So there's got to review that, and they've got to question their game style. They got a lot of goals out the back last year with those small forwards running onto the ball, but teams have worked that out. They're not allowing St Kilda to do that. Their small forwards don't have anywhere near the impact that they had last year. So there's 3-4 key pillars of a footy department and what makes clubs great and what they did so well last year that absolutely need to be looked at.
And it gets worse for the Saints. They have to actually catch a red eye home from Cairns tonight, so they'll have plenty of time to think about that result. There was a big moment earlier in the game. This is David McKay on Hunter Clark. Kane catches him high. Broken jaw for Hunter Clark. He was subbed out of the game. What do we think here? Because there's a few different results this year. This could go either way.
Yeah, thoughts to Hunter Clark. A horrible injury. I don't want to see a player get suspended for this. David McKay is one of the fairest players we've had over nearly 250 games now. Now, this is O'Meara on Friday night. Pretty similar incident, I think. Now, he got off for that. They did have a look at it, but he got off it, and Hayward was concussed and didn't come back on. I understand it's not a broken jaw, but similar type of impact. But this is the confusing part. So Plowman gets 2 weeks for that, which I think is a fair football collision. So toss a coin, Mitch. I don't know what way they will go. I won't be surprised either way. Won't be surprised if he gets 3 weeks. Won't be surprised if he gets off, which is probably part of the problem.
Yeah, it feels like it's 2 or 3 or nothing, given it's going to be a high grading at least with the broken jaw if it is deemed a reportable incident. We'll go now to the West Kane Fremantle. They're within a game of the top 8 now, and they did the job on the Gold Coast Suns. 4 goals direct from centre bounce.
And we'll get to the players that they were missing. But Gold Coast, the worst team out of the centre bounce this year. So they got to look at that. They've kicked 7 goals only out of centre bounce this year. And Fremantle, through Sean Darcy, 23rd birthday today, he's maybe the most underrated player in the competition, I reckon, Darcy. He's going to be a force for a long, long time. And they just had their way. Like, this is just training drill stuff out of the middle of the ground where the opposition don't actually touch you and you just go bang, bang, bang. That's beautifully done, as you would do at training. So another 4 goals out of centre bounce. They were just all over Gold Coast today. And I do like the way that Fremantle, I like their game style. I like the mix of the offensive style and defensive style. I think Justin Longmuir is coaching his young players the right way. Sarong gets another run with Rowell today, which sets him up well. So I think they've got a good balance. Their next step and the next evolution is doing it against the good sides away from home.
Here are the injured players. The Dockers doing it today without Nat Fyfe from that side. Matt Taberner is crucial. It opened up Josh Treacy, who played one of his best games for the Dockers now in his first season, coming off the rookie list. Some important names there on the left of screen.
Yeah, wouldn't have surprised me if they lost that game, because look at that injury list. So many key position players, dual Brownlow medalist out of the side, and they still were able to beat Gold Coast comprehensively. Like, it is a comprehensive beating. I know Gold Coast were inaccurate early, which sort of stifled a little bit of their momentum. But yeah, what can we say about the Gold Coast Suns? I'm not sure. They're 4-8. They're where they deserve to be, and they like to play flashy, uncontested footy that looks great when you get it going, and Rankin's on the end of it, and Lukosius is getting handball receives off half back. But when it gets tough, and when a team comes to scout that, they're just not hard enough. Apart from Touk Miller, who was amazing through the midfield today, their players don't give a yelp.
And you speak about their rucks and the centre bounce. Well, Zach Smith was in that team today, so it's not as if they didn't have a recognised ruck in that side. As for the Dockers, one man who's enjoyed his fair share, or not enjoyed, spent his fair share of time on that injury list, Alex Pearce, his first game back since round 1, second game since 2019. Absolutely dominated Ben King in this one.
First time Ben King's been kept goalless all year. So it was heartbreaking when he went down in round 1, wasn't it, after being out for so long. And you forget what just a good player he is, how strong he is one-on-one. He was able to compete with King. Like, King's strength is his real speed. Now, in the one-on-one body contest, as you'll see here, Pearce sort of had his way with Ben King. He'll grow into his body and he'll get stronger. But, you know, this sort of stuff, coming off at the right time, playing team-first footy, and he was interviewed after the game by the host broadcaster, and you could just see the relief on his face for getting through a game like that. So, as I said, I really like the future of Fremantle. It's just really important that they have a strong back half of the year.
Yeah, and Pearce back in that side allows Luke Ryan to go and do what he does best, intercepting off. Matt Rowell did return today for Gold Coast. Kane, probably the only silver lining he got through this one unscathed.
Got through, yeah. Wasn't at his absolute dominant best, was he? But you wouldn't expect that. Started at half forward and not in the middle, which was strange. So they'll have to manage his minutes and look after him a little bit. I still think he can win the Rising Star. I still think if he gets a good run at it for the rest of the year and plays sort of 9-10 games in a row, I think that is enough body of work to see him qualify. I don't think there's an out-and-out favourite for the Rising Star. If he puts it together...
Better than Luke Jackson, Riley Thilthorpe, Tom Green, Nick Cox?
Yeah, I think so. I'd give him Matt Rowell any day of the week over those names that you've mentioned. If he can string together, it's a big if he can string together 10 games in a row, the body of work last year plus this year, I think he can still win it.
All right, let's see. Back to Friday night, rather. The Hawks, they snapped a 5-game losing streak. It is an important loss for the Swans. It leaves them a little vulnerable in the top 8, and they had a few lapses that they would like their time back again.
Yeah, it does leave them vulnerable, doesn't it? I mean, they look like a team hanging for the break. And clearly, Clarko, with the week off, extra time to prepare, they got physical at training. They came with a real intense, smaller ground, contested game, suited them down to a T, and they just had their way in the air as well. Dominant display, contested marking. They took 15 of those. Segler back into the side, freed up McAvoy to go forward. But these defensive lapses that you speak of, so un-Sydney-like, and we've only seen it on brief occasions this year. That comes with fatigue. That comes with a young side. It comes with an opposition who are so well prepared physically, and they just couldn't go with the Hawks. So a full four-quarter performance, perhaps for the first time from Hawthorn this year, and well planned, well executed, well coached.
The Swans are 2 games inside the 8 now, but they've got Port Adelaide, West Coast and the Western Bulldogs to come. They also have to play GWS again, which almost shapes as I know we're speaking early, but an 8-point game maybe for that last spot in the ladder inside the top 8 if it comes down to that. You spoke about the Hawks' key tools. Ned Reeves was laid out with an ankle injury. John Segler came in, played his best game in Hawks colours in a long, long time.
Yeah, what about his numbers? 35 hit-outs, 20 disposals, 11 clearances and a goal, but the trickle-down effect was McAvoy as well, who's been well down in his first year as skipper. He had 13 hit-outs, 5 contested marks, if you don't mind, and he kicked a goal. So the dual threat of those two look really strong. Now, Reeves, what do you do when he comes back and he's fit? Well, you stay with Segler, because you're not going to drop a player off form like that. And he looked hungry, and as I said, McAvoy looked the best he's looked all year, and up against a really good opponent, dominated the hit-outs against Hickey, dominated contested possessions and clearances. So really good performance from a couple of Hawthorn's bigs.
5 goals to 1 from stoppages as well, so that was well and truly in the Hawks' favour. John Newcombe, Kane, came in for his first game. He wasn't on an AFL list as of 10 days ago. Picked 2 in the mid-season draft, the best advocate we've seen since Marlon Pickett for the mid-season draft. He looks a player, and I guess it poses the question now, with him coming in as an inside mid with the likes of Shields, Mitchell, Warple, O'Meara, does it allow them to trade one of them if he's going to play like this?
It's really interesting, isn't it? He's not what they need, but full credit to 14 tackles on debut, the most ever, and he looks a player, like he just looks ready to go and ready to fit in. But as you mentioned, he does not suit the mix at Hawthorn, but because they've committed to him for multiple years, which is unusual for that in the mid-season draft. In fact, it's a precedent, really.
Yeah.
There is no precedent, I should say. We haven't seen it before. Means that he can easily force Warple out of the side. I don't think James Warple is a lock in that Hawthorn side if they're going to be a contender. So there's a spot there that he can take. But the mix, Tom Mitchell's name comes up. You trade him. That's been spoken about. Clarko bristled at that, and probably rightly so during the week. But they don't have the midfield mix right. They need some outside support. The loss of Smith and Phillips has certainly hurt them with that run and carry on the outside.
Yeah, throw Scully in there as well. You spoke about James Warple. We'll have a look at this incident. He copped. He's been offered 1 game for this. Seems pretty harsh, given what we've seen this year. Harry Cunningham did play at the game. Was a little dazed after this. Do you think they'll challenge it?
I think they should. Yeah, I wouldn't have seen anything wrong with that tackle. It wasn't a sling. It wasn't it wasn't a sling head high tackle. It was a sling body tackle. I don't think there was any serious intent. So it's getting a fine line. I've got some sympathy for what players are allowed to and what they're not allowed to do these days.
All right, we'll move along to our AAMI clangers next. You spoke about Matt Rowell. He was a little confused in his first game. This is just before the bounce, Kane. Not sure if he's starting in the centre bounce. You can understand why. He should be in that centre circle, shouldn't he?
No, mate, I'm the best clearance first-year player we've ever seen, and you started me at half forward. No wonder he was confused. He's at my centre bounce, am I going forward? He's not a forward, so I can understand the confusion, but just brilliant to see him back. Good on him. Everyone's favourite here. And umpiring, Razor, had a night. He paid this one for insufficient intent. What we want to look at is the reaction, first from Papley and then from Horse up in the box. Doesn't he give us some of the best memes, as the young kids say these days, Mitch?
They do. They've been practising that, I reckon. This is Stephen Mullock. First game this season against his old club. He dominated last year against the Cats in that qualifying final. You like his time again here?
Had a rough night along with a couple of his other forward teammates, including Sam Powell-Pepper and Kane Farrell. Just 9 disposals, and I couldn't help myself. Couldn't help myself, Mitch.
This clangers to everyone on Twitter that bought into this. This is clearly you throwing the rod out, and you've got that many nibbles here. I can't believe the people at Twitter even bought into this and responded. And you had to respond. That last one, you had to throw that out there and suggest to people you were actually kidding. Surely they could understand that from the first one.
You would think so. I had a full bag of whiting, and I was back on shore within half an hour. I caught that many fish. Hilarious.
Oh, okay. Back to that game Thursday night. Not even Connor Rosie's 4 goals in that first quarter was enough for the Power The Cats, they continue to get it done, Kane. We want to take a look at some of these uncontested marks inside 50 because it was even at the stoppages at the contest, but the Cats got them on the outside. This is firstly Mitch Duncan.
Yeah, so what set it up was Geelong's 18 intercept mark. So they intercept the mark. Port Adelaide didn't compete ferociously enough and bring the ball to ground in the forward line. This is the flow-on effect from an intercept mark in your back 50. This was at a crucial time as well. And then they just had the full open side, Port Adelaide press up, so you get the overlap, and that's the outstanding work rate from Duncan. And we'll see it here again from Isaac Smith. I mean, he plays that wing role better than anyone, and he's got so much experience to do that. So am I back? Am I helping my defence from the weak side and filling up an extra hole and guarding space? Or when we win it, am I going forward and using that extreme running power? So once again, that is just a smart footballer who knows his game, knows his team so well. But I couldn't have been any more impressed by what I saw on Geelong. I was there live on Thursday night, and they're every bit a premiership contender.
The flag favourite right now?
Oh, I think not. You couldn't go past Melbourne as a flag favourite, but I think they have a great ability to time their run and get themselves playing the best footy at the right time. Now, Dangerfield's scratchy. He's going to get better. They're going to get Guthrie back. They got 5 games at GMHBR on the way home. So they're a lock for top 4. If they're top 2, with them playing the right footy at the right time, look out.
Yeah, the Power don't look a top 4 team at the moment. The Cats kicked 3 goals in 50 seconds to blow this game open. Kane, and have a look at their record now. The Power against the top 8 teams, 1-4 against the others. They're 7-0 against the rest.
Oh, I said it 3 weeks ago, I reckon. I said Port Adelaide don't belong in and amongst the top 4, and the club actually bristled back at that comment. Now they are admitting that they don't belong with the top 4 team. They're where they deserve to be. In 5th, they'll finish somewhere between 5 and 8, and that's why, because of that record and the losses against West Coast, Brisbane, Western Bulldogs and Geelong tell them exactly where they're at. And
the scores from turnovers, a 50-point swing from the bottom 10 teams to the top 8 teams. You wanted to highlight this, the Cats' rucks situation since Reece Stanley's been out of the team. Gustavo Radaglia takes the centre bounce and pushes forward, exposes defenders like Tom Jonas here.
Yeah, so they weren't expecting Radaglia to play forward, I don't think. They like Jonas either on Rowell or they like him as the spare. So he starts the ruck. Blixarve started on the wing, and then he drifts forward 30 seconds into the game. There you see it. Jonas is forced to play on a player much taller and play out of position. This is the result of that. Sloppy free kick because Jonas is playing out of his weight division. First goal of the game there, set up by that coaching tactic, that move that I reckon Ken Hinkley was caught off guard by. We'll see it again here. And Blixarve gives you that flexibility. So Radaglia does the ruck, pushes forward, uncontested mark inside 50 because Port Adelaide don't get their defensive structures organised. Great coaching, I thought, from Chris Scott. I thought he had the better of the coaches on the night.
Does it leave the Cats a little exposed down and back, though? Charlie Dixon has been so quiet against the Cats in his last 5. Did kick 4 goals, threatened to win the game. It almost feels like the Cats are one short when Blixarve's up, rucking and around the ground.
In an ideal world, you'd have him in the back line when your Blixarve's playing as that third tall. They've got Henderson and Stewart there, who's a star. But, I mean, if they're kicking 17 goals and kicking 112 points and keeping the opposition under 100, they're not going to lose too many games. It was a fantastic win. I don't want to take anything away from Geelong. The challenges they face, travelling same day, playing a good opponent on the prime time stage on their home deck, and to do that and play the footy they played, I thought it was a big warning sign for the rest of the comp.
Yeah, players sleeping under tables. They had 6 hours in the Adelaide Oval inside cricket nets. Here's to the players they've got over 30. The first time ever a team's had 10 or more over 30. It's leaving some good players out. Quinton Narkle's one you highlighted here on the show a few weeks ago. He missed out. Jordan Clark. Is this the right balance, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The way, I mean, if we would do this show and Geelong had have lost, we would have highlighted this pretty high up and said they're too old. They couldn't go with the young Port Adelaide side. But they keep playing like that. None of them really look like they're slowing down to me. They're all having an impact. Narkle's the one for me. You've got to get him back in the side. I'm not sure what, maybe something defensively that they're seeing in his game that they'd like to teach him and get his aerobic capacity up. But he's got to get back in that side. They're a better team with him in it.
And he still can't get a game with even Cam Guthrie out of the side. So it's hard to see. Feels like they're only going to play him as a midfielder and not a forward. They've almost committed to him as a stoppage player at this stage. Here is the ladder as it sits after round 13. Geelong up to 3rd, Kane on the table. And as we said, Sydney a little bit vulnerable there. West Coast and Richmond to play tomorrow. Fremantle just edging. The Giants can do the same if they beat North Melbourne.
Yeah, so who's the most likely to knock out Sydney of the teams challenging? I probably still think it's Essendon or the Giants. St Kilda are done now. Adelaide won't make it. Fremantle aren't good enough away from home. So I still think there's a three-team fight for that 8th position between Sydney, Essendon and GWS.
To the rest of the round we go next. That is a massive game, Richmond and West Coast over at Optus Stadium. Can't wait to see that one in prime time on Sunday night. And Melbourne, Collingwood, Kane. Can't wait to see that. Nathan Buckley's last game in charge.
It's been a bit anticlimactic, hasn't it? I'm not sure I agree with the split round. I think we're probably better just to have a week off for everyone because it does leave you a little bit short with a fixture. So thank goodness that game was brought forward tomorrow between Richmond and West Coast, and hopefully that saves a pretty dour round of footy, although we had a thriller tonight, which was good to see.
All right, to our one more thing we go next, Kane. Don't forget, you can check out fightmnd.org.au as we chuck our beanies on. A great cause, Neil Danaher. $20, Coles or Bunnings, you can get them. And if you're in Sydney, get to this game. It'll be an absolute cracker.
Absolutely. Just the AFL community do it so well and support an unbelievable cause. I think they're going to sell 500,000 of these beanies. So grab them. They're brilliant. And Neil, you are an absolute superstar.
Hoping to raise $2 million by halftime of that game on Monday. Melbourne, Collingwood, fightmnd.org.au if you can get involved. Kane, we'll see you next week.
Hey, Mitch.